name is Thomas K. Lynch, and I live in the village of Centerville. Well, you know, one of them that jumps right to mind was part of the 375th celebration, and that was the day that we all came together on the village green for a community picnic. And it was really the culmination of the celebration of our 375th anniversary. But it was a cookout, there was dancing, there was music, you know, diversity of all the citizens in our town showed up. That was then capped off in the evening with a concert, a special concert by the Cape Cod Symphony Orchestra that we had commissioned as part of the 375th celebration. We had Brett Abaganya, who is a doctorate in music and teaches at BU, actually put together a composition for us. He called it Seven Faces of the Stone. And it was a love letter to the town of Barnstable, and it was narrated by a former resident who, you know, has gone on to great things in Hollywood, and had a terrific, does a lot of background voices, so very professionally narrated. It was a video with the music that went through each of the 7 villages, and it was really something where when I left the concert and after that particular piece, I was just so proud to be a citizen here in the town of Barnstable. And as I walked out, I saw, you know, Mr. Pan or some of the Scudders or folks who have been born and brought up here and lived their whole lives with the same feeling that they had a renewed pride in our town, seeing it depicted in that way. You know, I think out of the moment that I probably had the most joy was when our name was called. We're out in Anaheim, and you know, they only select 10 cities nationwide, and when they started saying, this city, you know, has an affordable housing plan, and then this city, you know, revitalized its downtown, you know, in this city, you were getting the idea that that city was Barnstable. And when they called our name, and it seemed like we leapt as one, and as my good friend Van Northcross said, you wished you could have bottled that joy that you felt and then let it out every once in a while, because it was pure joy. You were so nervous. We had prepared for so long. We had 43 of us out there. It was really a community effort, very diverse group of individuals. And from the music of you know, we welcome you to Barnstable, right through to our presentation, to the award night, it was just a wonderful experience. Well, I was fortunate that my brother, John, was working for Nantucket Express Lines. Nantucket Express Line was a boat line going to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, owned and operated by Ted Gelinas, and it was located on Pleasant Street, where the Steamship Authority now is, privately held company. And John brought me, you know, into that, that setting. I remember we had traveled up from Falmouth, because we were still living in Falmouth at the time. It was a summer job for me, and drove up, and I don't know if I want to put this on tape, but we'll see. We drove up, and the old Martha's Vineyard was there, and that was the sister ship to the Nobska that had been previously owned by the Steamship Authority, and Ted Gelinas had taken it and converted it and was running it as a passenger vessel, legal passenger vessel, back and forth, although the Steamship Authority didn't think so, and they were not letting him dock in Nantucket, and there was a whole big legal mess. But at any rate, that first day coming to work, John had parked his little VW Beetle. It was kind of, you know, a little windy and misty, and he had already gone down the long gangway, and I hopped out with my little bag lunch and, you know, ran down that gangway, and he had put the cord back up. Well, I ran right into it, did a flip that probably would have gotten me a 10 in a gymnastics tournament, was sitting on my, you know, butt looking up, and there are all the other workers just standing in the, at the gangway in the entrance, and there's this guy, Johnny Dixon, who was the mate on the boat, and he just shook his head and said, "This is your brother, huh?" And I felt about this big, but it went on to really be a terrific experience for me because John got his license to run boats to, captain vessels under 100 gross tons. I later did. I worked on the catering tech, made wonderful friends through that process, then ran sightseeing for Highline, and then did an island boat for Highline later. I brought, this, I was reminiscing myself as I looked through. So this is from the Cape Cod Illustrated, and they did a story on the captain's Lynch, because John was going to Nantucket, I was going to the Vineyard, and Jimmy was running the sightseeing boat. So at one point in time during the day, we'd all be in the harbor at the same time. So it was just, and they profile my folks in here, and it was just a really, nice experience. So that was, if you worked for Highline, you have a connection to the town that for hundreds, thousands of people have gone through that company, and it was just a wonderful experience, and I value that ability to have run the boat and to have enjoyed that during the summer months. Born in Attleboro, raised in North Attleboro. It's, Attleboro and North Attleboro like Barnstable and Falmouth in terms of rivalries. My grandfather used to come down to the Cape all the time, and so my father had that desire to come back and forth to the Cape. We ran a summer camp, and he would tutor some of the students, and one of the students' parents, instead of paying him, would give him a weekend or a week on the Cape, and we'd go down to Patchewasset area, and started doing that in the mid-50s, and then by 1959 we had been able to cobble together some money and build our own place in Megansett, North Falmouth, and we would come down every weekend. It was just like clockwork. My father loved it, and as did my mother. And so in addition, then we stopped doing the camp and just came down for summer. So we had a lot of good, family events down here. And my dad used to like to get up early. I'd get up with him. We'd go exploring somewhere else on the Cape, because there are so many places, little nooks and crannies that you don't get to all the time. So we would make that as part of our weekend tours, to go to a different place each day. John was in the Navy, signalman when he got out of high school, and when he got out of the Navy, came down here, was going to community college, met the Jelinuses. They said, "Yep, we're looking for some people, come on over," and that kind of started it. And then John got both Jim and me into that, and it was, it was really fortunate. I'm grateful to him to this day, because it was just, being, if you love the Cape Cod, you love the water, being able to get out on it and being able to, worry about the weather and the tides and just, the ever-changing landscape seascape that you see all the time. It's a beautiful spot, and to see it from the water is really very, very, it's priceless. My father was, a public school teacher, valued public school education, was involved with a variety of, organizations, Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, things like that, and Boy Scouts and all of that. And he was committed to public service, and I think that flowed into me. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to, work with kids, but I also wanted to make a difference, and had, through school, run for class president when I was in high school, and run for class president and won, and run for class president in college and at BC and won. So I had that leadership drive also. So coming to the Cape, I was first involved with a presidential campaign, actually traveled around the country on that, then was involved with Congressman Studs' campaign, and he won the year that I managed his campaign for him Cape-wide. Then decided I'd run myself and won the state representative seat for Barnstable and Sandwich. Later served at the county level for 11 years, and now I'm with the town. So I think anyone can see that I've been working my way down the political ladder, but I've gotten to a point where all the experiences I've had, whether in elective or appointed or you know, serving with Governor Dukakis and Governor Weld as a commissioner on the rate setting commission, all those experiences have really, I think, led me to this position where I'm able to utilize a whole variety of skills and in community contexts to try to do the best I can for the town. Getting there wasn't so hard. You know, when you were going to come home, you never knew because of the, you know, it could be in late night sessions, and every speaker has a different way that they operate the House. Speaker McGee, you know, would love late night sessions, like to take the break for supper and then come back in at 9:30, and he'd come back all showered and refreshed, and we'd be thinking, oh, we're going to be here till 2 or 3 and then driving home. I carpooled with Jerry Kerr from the Bourne and Falmouth area, so that made it a little bit easier. It was just the difficulty. I think one difficulty with that job is that, you know, while you're working up there on serving on committees or debating bills on the floor of the House, whatever it might be, you've also got constituent work, and when you're coming back, you know, you're driving back and you're trying to make that 7 o'clock meeting that you promised someone you'd be at, or you know, some other gathering that you had responsibility. So we did have answering machines though, and so you'd get home and you'd have, you know, 15 calls that you needed to get back to. Now, of course, you could be riding home. No one knows where you're calling for. You could be riding home and be answering those same calls. And I try to respond to all of that because I know if someone's tried to reach out to you, it's important to them. They want some, you know, some feedback as to what's going on. You know, I showed you the little Cape Cod Illustrated I had here from 1975, and after reading the story about myself and my 2 brothers, I was going through, and you know, you see in here ads for the East Bay Lodge, gone. You know, the Go 10, that was a Japanese, you know, style restaurant. CCB&T, you know, not here anymore. You know, Isaacson's on Main Street. Maya's Furniture on the whole full page ad on the back. It's the Sturgis Charter School now. So, and the Dome Restaurant, the Lobster on the Rough. I mean, a lot of places that have come and gone. So we have a vibrant Main Street now. We have 40 restaurants, but 40 years ago, you know, we had a lot of fine establishments that have just, you know, through the course of time, changed over the years. So it's a different looking Main Street than when I was here in the 70s. Well, just getting older. You know, your friendship patterns change. I think the biggest thing has just been the overall growth of the community. You know, when I first started working on the boats and living here, you know, this is a town of 17,000, and many of the problems that we encounter today, whether they be the big ones like wastewater or private roads or some of those issues that we'll be solving for years to come, they weren't as big a problem back then. The population was different. You still got the swell in the summer, and there were a lot more family-run businesses and whatever, and the growth. I was one who came, you know, and I remember when they first put 5 movie theaters up in the Kmart Plaza. 5 movies. Who's going to go to those? You know, that was the first. Somebody knew, you know, they were looking at demographics and seeing the growth and said, no, there's going to be a mall here, and there's going to be, you know, 3 other malls down the way, and this is going to be a major shopping area to go to. So I think it's just the impact of that change. Fortunately, those places that we love, the beaches and a lot, it's all stayed the same. So that's a good thing. I had been working in Boston and commuting for 15 years. I knew that, there was a change of administrations, and while I worked well with Paul Salucci from the House and others, I thought, I would be returning to the Cape because, as we discussed earlier, that commute, whether it was in the legislature or outside of it, it's a good 4 hours out of your day quite easily. So I thought I'd like to recapture that because there are a lot of things I thought I was missing down here. So a good friend of mine who was on the Housing Authority, Peter Olatka, called and said, gee, we have an opening. The authorities had some difficulties. We've got a very poor audit out here. We've had some difficult times, and we're really looking for someone who may not have full background in housing, but knows how to manage people, knows how to look at a budget, knows how to make some difficult choices. Would you be interested? And I took the attitude that I can learn the language of housing. And plus it combined, working with disabled folks, working with elderly, working with working families, and a lot of those issues that I had worked on from the legislature. So it seemed like a nice combination of being able to make a difference. One of the things I'm still proudest of that, combined my interest in historical, issues as well, was saving the oldest house in the village of Hyannis. It was built in 1690. It was over at the, it was located at the time just off of Lewis Bay Road. Wayne Kirker wanted to expand his business there at the Hyannis Marina, wanted to get rid of the house, but didn't want to be the guy that tore down the oldest house in Hyannis. So it's known as the Coleman House, although it was also Dr. Webster's house. So a lot of people that perhaps you've interviewed, they all went to Dr. So they knew it as the Webster House, but Captain Coleman was the first occupant. And I had a lot that was behind the Housing Authority on Pleasant Street. While you don't like to move properties because they have more of an historic value in place, saving it meant more than to us than tearing it down. So we moved it and restored it, and it provided affordable housing, and we've got a clause there that should we ever not want to use it for that and give it to the town in some way for historical use. Nantucket has their oldest house, which is an attraction, and that's 1686. So it's like 4 years, older than ours, and we should really, capitalize on that sometime. I have really valued my time here in the town because, I love the town of Barnstable, and to be able to be in a position where I could help set the priorities, and working with John Klim was a wonderful experience. A talented manager, put in place a lot of budgetary and administrative changes that I've continued and built on. And Barnstable, while a lot of towns have the same fiscal challenges and the challenges presented by growth that I was alluding to earlier, at the same time, we've been able to attract talented people. We've been able to keep our budget, in check, and as long as we're firm financially, we can continue to grow and provide the services that our citizens need. It's probably out on Nantucket Sound. And, having spent a lot of time on the water, I still have a small skiff that we get around, and we'll go out to Egg Island and places like that. But just being out, on the waters of Lewis Bay, Hyannis Port, and out are great. Now, being able to stop the boat over at Calmus and enjoy the a little sanctuary and a swim there, or taking it over to Sampson's Island, all those water beach spots. Those are all the favorite places I like to visit. The fall's my favorite season. The crowds we talked about before have gone away a bit. It's still sunny and warm. You can still get out in the water. When you're biking, and that's really kind of my sport of choice. If I get out, I'm going to be riding the bike around, go to any of the trails we have throughout the Cape. It's cooler, and there's not some of the pressure you feel in the summer to get those summer things in. I suppose my true answer should have been Four Seas ice cream, but I didn't want to act like as my favorite spot. But the reason I moved here was for those the environmental riches that we have in this town. And when I was working in Boston for so long, and I'd come out of my house and take a left to go up to 28 and up to 132. Every day since then, now that I've been on the Cape, I take a right, drive by Craigville Beach. We live right by the water. You have to see it every day, and it's just soothing and enriching. I graduated in 1964, North Attleboro High School, class president, so I was involved in a lot of activities, and I recall that we had a pretty active class, and I've gone to a lot of reunions since, and we still have kind of kept that bond that we had in high school. We had a lot of challenges. There was alcohol, there was the anxiety of being a teenager, and growing up, all of that. And so I remember there being a lot of peer pressure and some of those same things about, cliques and the athletes versus the debating team and the chess club and all of that. So I think those types of pressures were there. When I go over to the high school and go through Barnstable High, kids just seem more sophisticated than we were. We had a certain naivete about life, and kids are well aware of things that, whether it's drugs or child abuse or domestic violence, kind of weren't, they weren't in my world when I was in high school. I didn't realize it was child abuse or domestic violence. It just didn't seem to be in my little small town, or at least in my world that my folks helped create for us, So, but today, there's just so much more exposure to all those things at a very young age. And so I think that the kids have it a little tougher from that regard because they're struggling with issues at an age where they're trying to form opinions about a lot of different things, and this creeps in. But I think in terms of, the academic rigors that we went through, and I think they're experiencing the same thing. I know getting into college seems a lot more sophisticated now. From, you picked 3 schools to try to apply to, and now there are 8 or 9, and there are visits going, there, and so but there's such a wide variety of activities at our high school too that weren't afforded to me when I was younger. So it can be both exciting, but I think there are also challenges that we didn't have. That's always a challenge too. But when you have a daughter who is just just the most wonderful person in the world, it made it a lot easier. I have been fortunate that when I purchased my second home, there was a lot of land between the 2 homes that I had, and my daughter was married and had 2 small children, and was looking to where she wanted to bring up her kids. And she started discussing coming to the Cape from the Cambridge area. And we said, well, you know, there is this lot of land. Would you, you know, saving it for you, you know, at some point in time. And she was very interested and actually took me up in the offer to take it, built a house. The grandkids are right next door. And Ella is graduating from Sturgis this year, going on to college, and has a choice between several fine colleges, including the Berkeley School of Music and Hampshire College and Salve Regina, Simmons. There are quite a few that she's, you know, been accepted at. So we'll see where that choice ends up, and it's great having Declan, who's now 12, right next door too. So it's they have found that, you know, whether it's the HYCC or 4-H or a lot of things to get, you know, the kids involved with, and I think they've had a very nice childhood, you know, here as well. You know, it'll be interesting to see what happens when they go away from the farm. You know, Ella seems to be more of a homebody. I think that she likes the small town. She's looking at smaller colleges. Berkeley would be a big step for her in terms of being in the city, or her love of music may help her overcome that, you know. But so I wouldn't be surprised to see that the influence they've had here, that one day come back. It'll be related, of course, to the jobs, what they're doing, how they can, you know, fit in. But I certainly wouldn't. I'd certainly encourage them to be here, because it's a wonderful place to live and to grow up. Well, you have the obvious ones of, you know, wastewater, private roads, maintaining a, you know, an adequate police force, public safety, having quality schools, and you can only do that if you have you know, a firm footing with your budgeting. I think that, so our challenge is going to be to continue to live within our means and yet provide quality services. You know, I think one of the advantages we have is having always been able to attract quality department heads who really do function as a team. And it's easy to say that. It's very different when you see us sitting around a table dealing with a specific, you know, problem. And I like to get input from department heads who might not be their bailiwick to be looking at zoning or to be looking at, you know, infrastructure needs, but have them chip in and ask some questions and challenge ourselves, you know, on that. I think maintaining some of the facilities we now have, you know, whether it's a physical building like a beautiful town hall here, but it's an older building, you have to keep up with it. I think all of our fields and recreational, you know, opportunities, if you're going to have a, you know, quality Little League or quality softball leagues around, they're expecting quality fields. So to maintain those fields, it takes people and it takes money. So, you know, we may find ourselves in more public, nonprofit, private relationships with the maintenance of our fields, so that we can have the myriad of sports we want, you know, whether it's soccer or lacrosse or baseball or softball. You know, those, again, it's a challenge with a reduced workforce, because we've had to make cutbacks over the last 10 years, and we have a much smaller workforce than we did 10 years ago. So to still maintain all of our roadways and all of our parks and all of our beaches, to keep that economic engine running for that our tourist community demands. But I see some exciting things. I see, you know, our arts and culture is really blossoming, and we've taken that on within the town and tried to promote that. We've done a lot of work with you know, infrastructure around, so we can set the table so that our businesses can grow and can get stronger. I'm very excited to think that we might have a world-class performing arts center here in the near future. We're working with the Cape Cod Symphony and the Cape Cod Conservatory to look to try to produce that. That's going to be a public-private venture. So I think we can continue to grow in our arts and culture area, maintain our existing recreational and environmental areas that we have. One challenge you wouldn't have thought of even 5 years ago would have been erosion on the north side. We didn't think about losing the parking lot at Sandy Neck. We thought we had more than enough dune protection. It lasted for years and years and years. Now suddenly we're into erosion control and dealing with that to maintain that asset for folks. So we live in a dynamic and really changing, environmental area, and we've got to be able to respond to that. But I still want to be able to maintain our native businesses of tourism and fishing and those things that have really made the Cape famous. Tom Lynch, town manager, town of Barnstable. I live in the village of Centerville.